All right, this is One Last Midnight. Welcome back to another episode of Astroneer. And actually, this is an epic base build review. We tried to do this on election night on a live stream, and unfortunately, that didn't work. Yeah, I'll know better not to do that again because everybody else was eating up the bandwidth. Anyways, this is a base that was created by Zensite, Ron, Kilmowski, and Josh. They call it Armageddon, and I'm going to bring them in and have them explain it to you. Okay, so we're here at the Armageddon base, and I'm just kind of floating around. And let me meet up with Ron, and he's going to take me through the beginning of this. Ron, I'm using the orbital aero camera, so I have you in view, so whenever you want to start chatting, I'll follow you around.
Sounds good. Well, this base is the results of a challenge that Zensite and I put together. We had done several challenges that led up to this one, which was building bases, building sorters, with the key word there being the sorter. We had built a base where we wanted the ability to bring resources into the base area and have a sorter that would sort them out and put them into the right places. And this challenge was, and I'll read it as it was originally written, the challenge is to not have a home base on Silver or use resources past the point of leaving for ATROX. And once on ATROX, a fully automated factory must be built for all resources, natural, refined, and composite, and be auto-sorted. No RTGs on the base. So the idea was to build a huge base, and huge simply because we wanted to display all of the resources needed for building things in the game. And as you can see here, we have, if I run over to the left, we have compound resin. And as I move across, we get to the mid-level materials, ammonium, and then to the composites, plastic, all the way over to nanocarbon on the right. So all of the resources required for building are on these medium storages that are sitting on a T platform with a medium canister keeping them full. You may also notice that there's a sensor on the front of each of the platforms, and that sensor is wired up to the machine that actually produces that particular resource on the base. The sensors should all be set to full or not full, so that once that platform, once you've emptied the canister and you're down to your last 8, once you take that 8th item off of the platform, the sensor will fire a signal to the machine to actually start replenishing. Now we have counters that count how many items have been sent from the machine, so that we can set it to say, give me 8 items, give me 10 items, give me 20 items, just so that we don't flood the base with more items than we need. So this is the main work area for the base. As you can see, it consists of 4 large platforms, extra large C platforms. And on each platform, we have 2 small printers, 2 medium printers, and on the platforms on the ends, we have a large printer. The reason we put the large printers only on the platforms on the end is so that you have an unrestricted view and access to all of the platforms that contain or that hold the resources. So from any of the platforms, you can, with long reach, you can reach any item that you need and place it either on the medium storage on the platform or directly on the printer and print any item you need. When you start to run on low on resources, the base will automatically resupply.
Now, you guys started this with nothing, right? I mean, you guys are in venture mode, so you didn't pre-populate this base with anything. This is not in create. I mean, while we're in creative mode right now, to show the base off, you guys started in adventure mode, right?
Right. We started in adventure mode on Silver and built up enough to get a rocket and actually, I think 4 rockets, 4 small shuttles. And we journeyed here to ATROX and then started from scratch. So the intent was to build up enough stuff to start building the base. And we'll talk about that in just a little bit, because obviously we require a lot of material to build the base. The base will supply what you need now, but early on, we didn't have the use of that. So we had to come up with other ways of supplying the materials to actually build all of these things.
Well, that's going to be interesting to hear, because I'm kind of curious if you did automation pieces in parts based off of the requirements of the resources that you needed at that particular moment in time, but you can fill that in. So also, I mean, it's not just a matter of having to get all the resources to build the base. You had to get all the bytes to unlock everything, right?
That is correct. We started off, and we had to make trips to some of our favorite places like Glacio to get bytes, so that we could then unlock the things we needed so that we could start building the base. So we went, I mean, this save was up for almost 3 weeks, and I think we had people in pretty much, it wasn't pretty much, I can guarantee there were people in every day, because I was in every day. We estimate that we spent about 280 hours. That's with 4 people working, myself, Kilmowski, Zensight, and Josh, all working to lay out different sections of the base, gather resources, convert resources to different things so that we could trade and get what we needed to continue building. To give you just a short overview of what's on the base.
Hold on.
If you look,
before you do that, let me just tell everybody out there, you're looking at this and you're probably saying, where are all the wires? Where are all the hidden goodies? And there are hidden goodies, and I just want to get that quickly out of the way to let people know that what you're seeing on top of the base is not the only thing. So under here, under the base, there are some additional wirings, and there's also some additional auto arm conveyor lines that move resources around from point A to point B. And those were done. Why? Why did you guys choose to do those down here as opposed to on top of the base?
Okay, so the way this was put together is we built, well, 2 things. Let me talk about the control lines first. After we built the base, got everything going, before we actually wired it up to where things would automatically kick off to do the refills, right? We built the entire base, verified that everything was working. We looked at running the lines on the surface, and we actually wanted all of the automation items to be on the surface so that they would be visible, so that you could see what was happening. But control lines have issues. One of the main issues is that if you set a platform down over control lines, they will all pop loose and disconnect. And that can be a pain in places I won't mention. So
yeah, because you'd have to reconnect everything back up all over again, and then
right.
Yeah.
And not only that, some of these lines actually run directly from the surface to the underground area, and you have to actually hold it and jump through a hole and then bring the line around. So it was tedious to get everything connected up, and it would have looked a mess. I mean, there's enough stuff going on up here already that we didn't need lines running all over the place. There are still a number of control lines on top that control things like keeping arms powered off when they're not in use. But all of the controls for sending signals to the machines to produce the resources needed, they run underground. I don't know if you're back up top or not.
I am, but before you continue, so I wanted to make sure everybody that's watching this is aware that when you're looking to see how things are working, that you also might need to go underneath the ground and try to figure out how things are wired up and hooked up together. And when I say look at this, Ron and Zensight, Kilmowski, Josh is going to make this available to you. You're going to be able to download this file. We'll tell you at the end of this video where to get it at. And you can load this base up and play with it yourself, because it is extremely impressive. But I have to warn you, the load time is going to be based on the power of your machine. So, okay, so before I rudely interrupted you about the lines and the auto arm train underneath the ground, you were going to say what?
I was going to say, if your camera can see this, there is the large C platform on the left has a hole under the right leaf, And if you look in the hole, you will see a chair sitting on I think it's an A platform underneath.
Oh,
And
yeah, I saw it when I saw the chair down there when I went by, right?
okay, so if I enter the chair,
Yep.
and then exit, I'm now underground. So this is our quick access to get under here when we need to check things or wire things up. I don't know if your camera made it down here or not. There you are.
Yep.
Okay. Do you see the other chair that's over here?
Yep.
Okay. It is, as you can see, it's sitting on a ledge and partially buried in the soil. And what happens is when I jump in this chair, first you get x-ray vision and you can see right through the soil. You can see the top. You can see all the control lines. But only way you could do that is, we'll save that for the audience to do when they download the save. But when I exit the chair, it pops me back on the surface.
Right. It floats you through the soil on up. Now, because I have the camera, I can't do that, but let me come find you again. All right. All right. So that's your quick entry, exit solution.
Right. That's how, if you need to get underneath and work on something, you can get up and down quickly.
All right. Sounds good.
Okay. Overview of the base. If you look to your left, there's a green beacon. That green beacon is an area we call Centrifugal Park. I play on the word Central Park, of course. And that is where the soil centrifuges are together and collected in one area to produce the low-level resources. So almost everything that you can get from a soil centrifuge is produced in that area, your compound, resin, so forth and so on. Zensight will talk about that in a bit. Even those things, as you can see, we do not have clay on the display because there's nothing that we print with clay. So we immediately convert the clay to ceramic. So ceramic is here. We do have both quartz and glass though, because you need both of those. And those items are all coming from that area. To the right of that area is an orange beacon, and that's an area we call Trader Joe's. That's where all the trade platforms are located. Those platforms, those machines produce the mid-level resources that we get from the trade platform. Your copper, your zinc, your sphalerite, and or zinc, should say, copper, tungsten, iron. There are trade platforms. There are smelters to smelt the items when they come back, and then they are placed into the sorter to be sorted and put on the base. To the right of that is a very large area with a, I guess, purple or lavender beacon, and that's called Chem Laboratories. Chem Laboratories, that's K-I-M, is where we have our chemistry lab set up, and this is producing all of our composite resources. In addition, it also produces the hydrazine and basically everything from rubber through nanocarbon alloy. If you look at the ordering of the resources on the base, we try to make them match what you would find on the machine. So if you go through the chem lab and look at the order of things, the layout here should match that order. But we have one particular thing of note with Chem Laboratories is for each item that's produced, if it requires some other item, they are produced in the machine. We do not move materials from the other sections over here to put them together. So for example, to produce nanocarbon, we actually produce the hydrazine to make the graphite, to make the graphene, and we trade to get what we need, or we run it through the soil centrifuge if we need to basically get everything needed to build whatever particular product we're trying to output, say it, titanium alloy or nanocarbon. The intent is that each machine is actually a standalone machine to produce that material, and it does not rely on any other machine. The only caveat or the only exception to that is if you look at, and Zen will explain this, if you look at things like nanocarbon, which needs steel, which also needs titanium alloy, all of those machines are sort of intertwined, right? That we produce the lower level one, and while we're doing that, we hand it off to the next machine over. But within Chem Laboratories, all of the machines to produce these things are self-contained. And if you look behind me, you see our battery bank. So these batteries store the power needed to keep the base operational 24/7, in particular at night when we have limited solar.
You're going to go deeper
When we
into the
have no
power.
solar.
You're going to go deeper into the power system later.
Oh, yes. I'm going to talk about the power system. And directly behind the batteries is the backup generator. And behind that is a red beacon that you can see. And that is our Scrapperville area where we do our shredding and scrapping. And it is also where we have the soil to scrap machine located. It was one of the first machines we built, actually, and was built and completed before we actually even finished the layout of the main base. It was something that we had used in a previous build, and we basically laid out an area and put it together. And then Kielmowski, who's going to take us through our scrapping operation, set up his scrap line. So that's pretty much the grand tour. The only other thing I will mention is we do have a hydrazine reloading area. And it's sitting here simply because it was also one of the first things that we built. And we finally found a good use for some of the rings. And if you walk into this area, the auto arms will wake up and load you up with hydrazine. So if you're flying around and you're running low on hydrazine, you can
you
come
drop
here.
a couple items off of your backpack so we can see it get loaded up?
And if I run in, this guy will wake up. He will load as many of the hydrazine as he can, and that will trigger the rest of the operation to produce. We actually have an atmospheric processor here, and we have a large container full of ammonium to keep the silo full of hydrazine so that we can continue to fill any astroneer that's needing refilling on his backpack.
Sweet.
And with that, let me introduce Mr. Kielmowski. He's our scrapper general, and he will take you through our scrapping operation. Take it over, Kiel.
Okay. Can you see me, Midnight?
I'm right in front of you.
Okay. I'll fire it off and get it started. What we're mainly scrapping is extenders because they're your best option for automated shredding.
Now, can I ask you what all this scrap is for? Why do you need this scrap machine? Why do you need Scrapperville to begin with?
Well, one, I like it. Two, all of the high-level material that we produce is traded for on trade platforms. And what do they need? They need scrap. So all of this scrap that I have produced, mainly me, has been done so that we can run all those machines and resupply the base. So there is a purpose for it besides just the fact I like to do it.
All right. Is this a soil to... This isn't like a self-contained unit, right? You guys went and got malachite somewhere and you're feeding... I'm seeing it's feeding it off of these canisters, right? So you have thumpers or something somewhere?
We have 5 thumpers on... Just a second, let me get away from the noise. We have 5 thumpers on Calidor. 2 I put up, and Josh put up 2. I put up 3. And his actually filled 2 medium resource canisters. It's a unique setup, and if somebody looks at this game, they really ought to go there and look at it. He's got a very unique way he runs thumpers. But anyway, they produce 7 canisters. I constantly go there about every time I think they're full, bring them back, set them up here, and start the scrapping operation. So I have done that for the entire time that we've had this up and running.
All right. And so you're scrapping extenders, and it's going through this process, smelting it down. I can see it smelts it down and moves over the copper to what looks like a printer. Single printer? Single printer. And
Yeah,
then,
there's one printer for repeater buttons, and then there's one printer for extenders.
oh, I see him. Okay.
And Ron refined this line. My typical line has 3 smelters. This line has 4, and it has 2 shredders. So it produces a lot of scrap very quickly.
Right.
And I'd like to take you over and show you where the scrap goes.
Okay, I'll follow you.
If you'll see here, there's a line, again, that Ron built that takes the scrap and takes it over to scrap storage. And this, my friends, is scrap storage. So maybe you get an idea what we did here.
Now, Ron told me something interesting about this. It actually feeds down this chain, right? So
Yes,
if I'm on the first one here and it's loading it up and then this one gets filled, you want to come back to the first one and where this arm is pumping it into and kind of explain to me how this is moving around from one storage to the next or from one platform to the next, I guess.
Well, to tell you, Ron, are you around? Can you explain it? Because I'm not sure how you do this.
Yeah, if
I thought you were scrap man. You're scrap man, but you're not scrap storage man.
I am the producer of scrap. Ron is the refiner of scrap. Ron is brilliant. Go ahead.
Hey, Kiel, just take some of the scrap off of at the beginning where the arms would feed it into the scrap line. The way this was originally put together is you have to come over here to where the scrap line picks up the items. The first platform is the one I'm standing next to. The ones over there where things are coming from the shredders is the end of the line. When you take things from the output area, a canister is no longer full. So it pulls from the platform next in line. When you take something from it, something here is no longer full, so it takes from the next platform. And when you take something from this one, something here is no longer full. So what happens is it's just a chain reaction. That's why I say you have to look at it from where the scrap actually leaves the system.
All right, spent way too long on this. So
yes, we did.
So if you guys don't understand it, contact Ron and he'll explain to you that you need to go to the end before you can go back to the beginning.
Okay, there's one other piece of the scrap process that I'll show you, and it's Ron's again. So here we go.
And that's this over here, right? And this,
Yes.
from my understanding, what you guys explained to me, is a self-contained scrapping system based off of soil.
Yes, it is. It's based off of soil, which is, we get the soil from the same place we get all the soil. And the soil is comes here to be turned into quartz. Quartz is added to zinc that we send off on with trade platforms, rockets, and they're combined together and made storage buttons, which are scrapped. The problem with this, it's a great system, it works, but 1 medium canister of soil, worth of soil, will only give you 8 scrap profit. So we used this early on in the build to help build up scrap while I was running the more manual process of going to Calidor to get malachite. And then we stopped it because of the drain on soil. But it works and it gives you a profit. And, you know, it's worth doing if you want to try doing it.
Let's just explain it really quick. So soil comes in, you convert it over to quartz. Where are you getting this sphalerite from? I mean, what are you scrapping that is quartz related or glass related that will then produce scrap for you to be able to trade for sphalerite that can be then converted into zinc and then you can turn around and build up some buttons, or do you just preload the machine?
No, the machine's not preloaded at all.
Let me go back to the process all over again. You're building this from the very beginning. You don't have scrap. All you have is soil. So you built this process that also requires scrap. So you would have to scrap something first to make the scrap to make the zinc, so that you can then produce the second item to start the whole process, right? So it's preloaded with scrap so that you can get zinc, right? Or you've gotten zinc from somewhere to start to kickstart the process.
Yes.
Okay. And then once you kickstart, so it's preloaded. So once you kickstart the process, then it's self-sustaining.
Yes.
It will produce enough scrap to be able to purchase the sphalerite, which you can convert into zinc, and then create the item that you're going to scrap, and then it'll leave you with a plus gain of 8 of a container. And then we're talking container of 32, right?
Yeah, you're talking a medium container.
Medium canister. Okay. All right. Fire that button up. This is going to drop my frame rate down to like almost nothing here. Well, actually, it's doing a lot better since I'm not streaming it. Well, it was doing better. Here we go. Here's the hiccup.
The scrapper started.
Yeah, for some reason, this machine causes a hiccup in frame rate. And, I mean, I'm watching my frames drop from like 40 frames down to 18 frames based off of, I don't know what process is causing this to hiccup. Maybe it's the button repeaters. Maybe it's something. I don't know, but this is a... Did you guys ever experience this problem? Probably not, because it was on the server, right?
Right.
Right, it ran fine for us.
Ran fine for you guys.
SCS and Nitrado have to be proud of the fact that this thing runs at all. I mean, this base runs. I think this base pushes the Astroneer software as close to the limit as you're going to get without stopping.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. All right, well, you can shut that off. This is very interesting, and I've actually seen builds of this before, where you get this. I've seen math on this too, where you get this, you know, plus gain off of soil, but it's fully at 100% feasible, and this is easy system to set up on Silva, even though you guys weren't going to mine on Silva or do anything on Silva, because sphalerite is there. So I think, you know, the first time that I saw this build, it was based on Silva, mainly because that resource was sitting there waiting for them to process, and you know, they were just generating scrap for days. But again, it's very soil intensive, and it's not really worth it. The better exchange rate, if you're going to convert anything to scrap, is malachite to the extenders, which gives you a 1-for-1, right?
Yes, it does.
Right. So, which means, I mean, you just go to Calidor, and those containers over there, are those the small ones? Those are the small ones, right?
Yeah.
Okay. But if you were to imagine you to bring a large one here with 400, that's 400 pieces of scrap. I mean, what are you going to do with 400 pieces of scrap?
Josh did that to start with. His thumpers are set to actually put large canisters on them. I didn't like dealing with those, so after we got the initial large ones, I just put 2 mediums on his thumpers, and they, like I said, it's worth going there. If you load this save, to go look at his thumpers.
His operation on Calidor. Is that clearly marked for people that do load up this save?
There's 2 locations, one mine, one his, and if you're going around the planet, the lower one is his.
Okay. All right. Well, what else you got to show me?
That's it, boss.
That's it. All right. Well, who are we kicking this off to?
That'd be me.
Zensite, come on in.
Look at you in your spacesuit. Oh, how shiny you are. All right. Well, show me what you got, sir.
All right. I'd like to take you and show off the sorting system. Now, our sorting system is a series of arms that we call they're running a loop.
Let me
We
stop you
call
for a second.
The one.
Let me stop you because I'm looking at 1,000,000 arms. So the combination that you're talking about here are the ones that have, I won't say that it looks like DNA, but it kind of looks like DNA, where you've got a half a circle, and then you're connected to another area that's got almost a circle, and that kind of goes around. That's what we're talking about here, right?
That's right. So
Okay.
yeah, the kind of loop, almost a crescent loop, so to speak. And yeah, so the idea of this loop is that resources can actually keep transferring around until they reach their final destination, which are done by what we call, and the inner loop is called the transfer arms. And then we named the other ones the filter arms that are set, obviously, to pull the resource into the right canister.
Okay, so let me stop you for a second. So if people understand that, and that I understand that, there is some input area, which it looks like it's over here on the far left-hand side, the beginning of the, and if you guys can see my cursor, I think that is the input arm. And it goes and lands into the sorter loop, and it travels around until the appropriate arm picks it up and shoves it into a canister. Is that correct?
That's right. Now
Ron told me about this propaganda of this. I only want 3. So I mean, how does this whole sorting system work? So let's say you have all this fired off at once. You got just a crap ton of resources moving around. I would assume that you would have a backup or a roadblock somewhere, but you have all these resources moving around. What if you build excess amount of resources?
It's funny that you say that, because we built and designed this so, in fact, you can actually put a resource in at any of these points, right? Like, for example, on the back. So you actually have multiple zones of entry. But we use these, the medium platform Cs. And we did that because it's actually quicker to transfer them around. And then we put sensors on them as well. And we've actually put timing. So it's always going through, and it'll hold up anything coming in until, things are filtered around. I mean, you'd have to do a huge amount to actually lock the whole system up.
Interesting. Or not necessarily lock it up, but bottleneck it, right?
Exactly, bottleneck it.
Okay.
But even then, it's easy enough to clear it out if you somehow manage to do that.
All right. Continue, please.
Yeah, so give you an idea too. And also have a big good segue to the other place. I'll start pulling some of the lower level natural resources off here to kind of start kicking things off.
I think it was resin, not organic. There's 3 in that canister. There you go. All right, so you did that, and a sensor said, hey, my canister is empty, and fired off a signal over here, right?
That's right. So let's take you to Centrifugal Park, is what we call it. And if I come down a bit here, you can see that there's the centrifuge here for resin.
Hey, Ron, do you want to start pulling stuff off so we can see other things run too?
Will do.
Thank you, sir.
Excellent. Yeah, so that will trigger off all the way over here. This arm, for example, which will start loading up into this other transfer bus that eventually does take it down all the way down to the auto sorter loop. Now, the important thing to know about this design here is that we actually have a soil feeding line that comes up from underground and up into here that constantly feeds the soil to these centrifuges. And then it will pull the empties and then put it back through the line all the way down, recycling them.
Walk me through the soil line. I see where the soil is sitting on the A platform. And how is that soil? Oh, there's an inner loop. Oh, okay. All right. Yeah. Take me through it. I see what's going on, but take me through it.
Yeah, if you recall being down underground, you probably remember there is actually soil, I believe, getting routed down there
Yep.
as well.
Yep.
So when it comes up down up to here, obviously, and then it gets transferred into when it's ready to
The
grab something.
central distribution area.
That's right. So
Okay.
I go like in the middle here.
Yep.
But once it's done, obviously it goes back out here, and then see right here, you can see one going off already.
Yep. There he
Follow me
goes.
there.
Yep. Okay, Ron,
It's
don't pull
pretty
any
good
more
system.
off.
I fired everything. One load of everything.
One load of everything. All right, cool.
Yep. So centrifugal park, and as Ron mentioned earlier too, things like clay, we just automatically smelt because there's no purpose where you don't use clay for anything other than making ceramic. We do make carbon back here as well with organic, so we have a dedicated organic centrifuge for that.
And then you also have another dedicated centrifuge for organic, just to provide the raw resource, right?
That's right.
Okay.
We also have the quartz here, which I believe this one's dual purpose, so it can actually feed the quartz with the glass smelting, or just feed quartz into the system. Any questions on centrifugal park?
No, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. I like how you set up the soil distribution center in the middle of all the centrifuges, and to limit the number of arms that you needed to have to move that stuff around. It's kind of a little bit of spaghetti-o out here, right? So you need to, for those of you that are going to run this, it seems the outer loop is the distribution loop. So that loop is taking everything that's made off of the soil centrifuge and putting it into the line that then turns around and goes into the sorting system. And I'm sure that's true for all of these 3 machines that you're going to show me, right? That's
right.
Yeah, there is some inner distribution loop for the machines themselves, but then that goes to the sorting system, and then the sorting system winds up taking care of that. Did you guys build the sorting system first, or did you build the machines first?
We actually built the sorting system first, and then started building the machines after that.
All right. Well, that's clear. So we're off into Trader Joe's, right?
That's right. So this is where all the refined resources come into play, as Ron listed them off earlier. It's pretty good. So what we do is we actually have that scrap line that Kill has been supplying, the scrap.
We saw that in the beginning when we were talking
right.
to Kilmowski, and Ron kind of took us through how the scrap went through the system. And so that goes, and let me just jump over there really fast so people can get a better picture of that. So over here where the scrap is, you see this line right here, and that is the main scrap line. And that is distributing to all the systems that need scrap. But it's also, what we're talking about here is Trader Joe's, and it's distributing it to Trader Joe's, which then does what?
So Trader Joe's what it does is it supplies it to these automated trade platforms, which of course have counter sensors on here, repeats, just so we can get the right number of scrap to resource ratio for the raw resources. So, X amount for cobalt or malachite, for example, to make the copper. And then it just does the smelting, and then it feeds it all down here. And
right, that's a good point. Oh, well, let's hold on. That's a good point. So the most is 8. The least is what? 4?
That's right.
Okay. So you've got some sort of counter system set up that knows I need 8 pieces of scrap or 4 pieces of scrap or something in between to be able to get to the raw resource. And then, as you were saying, the raw resource then goes through the smelter, and we're looking at that right now. It gets smelted out, goes into, like I said, that export line that then turns around and goes into the sorting system.
That's right. And we do some similar things also in the Chem Laboratories area as well.
Now, let me okay, now that's a great segue to the chem lab, right? So some of these items are used in higher formulas. So do you not turn around and trade back to those machines, or are those all self-sufficient?
Okay, so we originally, because the sorting loop is actually pretty good usually about transferring things around, we did try to actually feed the sorting loop and from the resources from Trader Joe's to Chem Labs, but it got way too complicated. What turns on that? If someone, for example, is over in the display area pulling resources off, right, triggering it, that would cause too much complications. So we ended up making the Chem Labs machines more self-contained, but also, as you noticed, feed also off the scrap line here.
Right.
And also does a similar method with counters. Like I said, these ones here that for the graphene and hydrazine and factory portion here, this trades obviously for graphite and ammonium.
This area was called what again?
This is all part of Chem Labs.
This is all part of Chem Labs.
And these machines right here that I'm at feed for the hydrazine plant factory and the graphene factory.
Okay.
So the machine we started with was to build the automated nanocarbon factory.
And because the nanocarbon factory takes so many different components, are you saying that it not only feeds the nanocarbon factory, but it also feeds other factories as well? Or do you have those replicated in the rest of the chem labs over here?
So the beautiful thing is we managed to actually reuse every one of these machines also to feed their sole display caster from the sorting system, or through the sorting system.
Okay.
So not only does like, for example, the hydrazine get used to make the graphene, the graphene could be used to make diamond over here, or could feed graphene down, obviously, to make the titanium alloy, for example. The titanium goes down here in this large canister of titanium. For that, it will send off to trade for more. So it's pretty self-sufficient. Same with the steel. So all this will also always feed into, the main bus here for the auto sorter. So the idea was to try to get as much reuse out of the machines as possible too.
So the only external component that you're getting here, well, there's two, is scrap and the gases. Is that correct?
That's right.
And soil.
And a bit of soil here.
Oh, and then soil. Okay, so the soil line also comes over here to trade for what? Oh, probably organic compounded resin to create the plastic, all the other the lower end of the chem stuff, right?
Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I'm seeing some of that here. Here's plastic. Yeah, this is really, really cool. So when you guys put these together, so you created the sorting line, and then what did you do? Did you wind up working on one specific set of machines like Chem Labs or Trader Joe's or did you how did you wind up deciding what you needed to build and when you needed to build it? Was it a single mind focus on we're gonna build Chem Labs and we're gonna complete that project and then we're gonna move on to Trader Joe's and complete that project, or did you kind of just piecemeal it together because you guys are in survival and you're building up, right? You don't have all of these resources to begin with. You're gonna have to generate these resources to make these things. So how did you guys wind up coming up with the construction of what was more important and how do you build it?
Well, we went for probably the more complex one first, so after we got the sorter loop here set up, I started off the build with building the automated nanocarbon factory to kind of get the rest of this stuff also going, because we kind of reuse a lot of this stuff anyways, right? Like, the steel and whatnot for some of the other machines.
But scrap was done first, right? So scrap was
That's right.
Scrap was available to you at that point in time. So scrap came first, and then you had scrap, and you're able to start producing these resources. So you come to, instead of going to Trader Joe's, you came over to ChemLab first.
Yeah, actually, ChemLab was actually start first, and it was almost like, okay, this is the route we want to go. This seems to work out, right? And then we decided, okay, this whole section here, on this side of the gate, so to speak, would become like the chem labs, the composite areas, right? So that's how that kind of worked out. Because you got to keep in mind, we got to keep good spots where we can feed it into the auto sorter, right? So we had to kind of like decide, and organize where that's going to go.
It's interesting that you guys went with the most complex resource construction first, as opposed to going with the soil centrifuge to produce the base resources, the base meaning just the basic resources, and then going to Trader Joe's to build that next level of resources, the refined resources, before you went to the composite resources. What was the purpose of going to composite resources first?
Well, it was kind of trying things out. We've actually had a bunch of different little other models, so it was more process of elimination.
Okay.
Hey, Midnight, if I could interject, what happened was Zen had already built a nanocarbon factory before, so he knew how to put that together quickly, and he did that. That was actually the first thing done, and he did nanocarbon, steel, titanium, alloy. Okay, he had also, and then after he did just those three, he moved over to Centrifugal Park and did all of the low-level stuff. While he was doing that, I went to Trader Joe's and one at a time started building up each one of those machines. After all of that was done, we then completed the rest of the high-level machines. So it was sort of like using what you know how to do quickly, get a foothold and then expand upon that.
Okay. All right, because I'm making the assumption here, looking at the total number of machines, looking at the total number of auto arms. I mean, you're going to need just a crap ton of aluminum, a crap ton of other resources before you can even start really building this stuff up. So, I'm making it. I mean, by the time that you guys are starting to build this, did you have everything that you needed? Did you go off and mine at other locations? Or did you... This is... The only thing that you're mining on other locations are two things. Bytes and malachite to be able to build your scrap line and stuff. And then everything is being produced here. Is that correct? Is that a correct statement?
Yeah, pretty much, because it was a mix of that and, yeah, the extra scrap. I originally had a workplace over here before Trader Joe's was here, right? And I would just, because the base is so large, right? I just kind of built a whole bunch of machines that are already here just for building up, the chem labs and then the centrifugal park. And then we removed that so we could make room for Trader Joe's.
Okay.
Can what happened? Something, Midnight? Early on, let's give Josh credit. Josh's thing is resources, and he went to Glacio, and he brought us back lots of iron and lots of titanium to start with. So we had that going in, and he also brought back a lot of ammonia.
Oh, laterite too. So, yeah.
Okay, so there was some external gathering of resources, right? So this whole base wasn't built off of trying to not only make a base that produces all the resources, but it's not make a base that produces all the resources and only use the items that are coming off of that base. There was some initial gathering of items to kind of jumpstart the entire process, right?
That's right. Because if we did the that way, we'd been down here for probably a few more weeks.
Right. Take you a lot longer, right? All right. Well, that's cool. Is there anything else you want to share, Zen, or?
No, I think that covers it.
That covers all of the three areas. I don't think I have any more questions. I mean, I totally get what's going on here. I just don't understand how scrap is coming out of this machine, but I'll live with that without that knowledge. All right. All right, Ron, go ahead. I know. Thank you, Zen. I know that you're going to show me some power because this whole, and I'm zooming way up to show this thing, this massive amount of equipment that has to run. You guys didn't do a base calculation on how much power you're using, did you?
We did not.
Okay, but you have how many auto arms?
We have plus 350.
So if they were all on, that's 350 units of power being run at one moment in time. I didn't count up the soil centrifuges, but it looks like 6 or 8. You've got all kinds of scrap machines going on here. So probably wouldn't be unrealistic to say you're using in the neighborhood of somewhere 1,000 units per second.
That's probably right. We have 14 chem labs, 16 centrifuges, and 30 smelters.
And this is all done, you said it in the beginning, without RTG. So now I know the audience watching this are going, why in the heck did you bother to do that? Because that is nightmarish.
For some, right? But what we found is that once you get the RTG, if you start using RTGs on your base, you'll just keep adding and you will eliminate the fun in managing power, in tracking how much power you're getting from wind, how much power am I getting from solar? Do I have enough to make it through the night? So we typically
song,
do not,
right? Make it through the night.
help me make it through the night.
Help me make it through the night, right?
we for that reason, and I just enjoy fooling with power, and we have backup generators, and we have to determine when should the backup generator kick on and how much fuel is it going to use. So what happened, and once again, credit to Josh. Josh came in early on when we first started putting this together and decided we didn't have enough batteries. I think we had about 20 or 30. So when no one was on but Josh, he came in, did a marathon run, and we have 109 batteries that are in this battery bank. In addition to that, we have over 500 small wind turbines on silos.
Let me just fly around, show people those. So those are all located right around in here. And then your other power is what?
If you look to the left of the gateway, you will see our solar arrays. There are 24 solar panels. On ATROX, we get half power, so they're equivalent to 12 solar panels on say, silver.
Okay.
So we have 24 of those, and hopefully you showed them the wind turbines on the gateway.
I did.
That's I think that's 10 times 24, so that's 240 there. We like the footprint of using small wind turbines on the silos. It only takes up one tier 2 slot, and you get 12 units of power whenever they're on. Now, they are not on very often, but we try to make good use of it with the battery bank. So the battery bank will store the power whenever the wind does blow or when the sun is shining. And we put it into the battery banks and draw from that at night if the wind is not blowing, because the only other source of power would be that. But if you come on this side, we have a backup generator. The backup generator consists of 40. It's a extra large C platform with 4 large silos, and each of those have, which contains 12 slots. Each of those have a medium generator on it. We have 46 in total. We don't have 48 because we also have 2 canisters that are holding carbon, so that when the generators need a refill, they pull directly from the canisters. Next to that, we have another large C platform with 2 smelters and auto arms and a large canister holding 400 pieces of carbon. That is our reserves for feeding the 2 canisters on the platform that has the generators. To the left of that, we have a soil centrifuge, and it is producing the organic. So that one centrifuge produces all of the organic that is then transferred to the smelters which are then transferred to the large canister as carbon and then on over to the generators. What's nifty about this is all of the soil for the soil centrifuge comes from that same soil line that feeds everything else on the base. So if I go over and turn the generator on, since it's daytime, the base isn't doing much. It will not come on by itself. And oh, by the way, I think we have a sensor that's set 2/3, 1/3 power remaining. So when 2/3 of the batteries have been drained, the generator will automatically cut on and start charging the batteries and powering the base until we are back above that 1/3 level. So the generator cuts on and off automatically to resupply the base with power.
Do you have a central power in? Is there one line that you can shut off all of the wind and solar power on, or no?
I cannot, but I can. The base is fed directly from the battery bank, and there is one line at the top right of the battery bank. And if I disconnect that, it will disconnect the batteries from the base and the generator, of course. So, but the power is sort of sprinkled around the base. We have turbines, sort of all over, and there is no one place where all the power comes in. It all just feeds into a network.
How do we drain these batteries so I can see that they're charging?
Let's see. Hey, Kill, can you crank up those threaders? That'll do it.
If I switch it over to nighttime, would that help? Because we wouldn't be getting solar power.
Yes. If you do that, that'll do it.
There's nothing left to shred, Ron. It's all been shredded.
Okay. Let me turn the generator off so we can see the batteries drain. Backup generator is off.
There we go. Look at all those little minus symbols flying off of here. And look how fast it's draining. Jesus. Oh, it's draining the top line only, and then it'll go down to the second line after that?
Right. The batteries are hooked up all in series from the top right to the bottom left.
Wow.
So it becomes sort of a power meter or a gauge to let you know what's going on. Let me take the battery sensor just to make the generator cut on. I'm going to set it on the top right battery. So when that top right battery goes empty, Kilmowski, if you're there, would you crank up the soil to scrap machine? It draws a nifty amount of power. And I will pull some resources and we'll start that stuff running too. Let's see if we can't clog up the system. We've yet to do it, oh, by the way.
I started pulling some resources too, actually.
Yeah, you could tell that the power is seriously draining now.
Zen, there's a button to the right of each canister. You can just press it and it'll kick off the machine. You don't have to pull the resources.
All right, so power's draining. You've got a sensor on here somewhere. Which one's going to drain the fastest? That top right one doesn't look like it's draining at all.
Wind is probably blowing and it's probably taking the charge. What happens is
gotcha.
The system will drain that top right battery first, but it'll also charge it first.
Okay, I got it. So when it drains out, it's going to fire off the power system.
Right, and the big horn, the large Starship horn will sound to let you know the backup generator has cut on.
All right.
It'll sound again when it cuts off. But of note is that the soil centrifuge is sitting here continually on trying to spin up organic. As the arms take the organic and smelt them to produce more carbon for the generators, when the centrifuge has no more organic to put on the table will turn on the soil line, and soil will feed into the centrifuge so that it can spin up more. So it's a totally automated process. And if the backup generator kept running, it would run until it drained literally all of the soil from the soil reserves.
Right. All right, well, fire up the generator. Let's not wait on the battery. Oh, you can fly, right? I have to go run. All right, so that's on. Lights tell me it's working. And then
the batteries would start charging.
Yeah, you can see the batteries firing off and charging.
And if you watch the centrifuge, it just went the table went not full, and it's pulling soil from the soil line.
Yep, I see it over there, the left-hand side.
Empties are going back in. The empties will make it all the way back around to the soil reserves, get refilled, and put back on the soil line for distribution to whoever needs it. And that process will just continue.
Wow.
Okay. I'll just let that keep running, because while that's running, we can look at the soil reserves. Okay, so the soil line runs in a loop from, if you see the two large silos containing soil, that's where we
facing the gateway, it's going out to the left and in from the right. Is that correct? Yes, I'm watching it.
That is correct.
Okay.
That is correct.
All right. And so for you guys that, you know, maybe you're a little bit overwhelmed because all of this stuff is running and it's a little bit crazy. If you follow this outer line, this goes all the way around. It goes down underneath into this hole. It actually goes through the whole base and then winds up popping out over here and taking the empties. Somewhere back over there, that outer line, taking the empties all the way back around to this soil right here. And sorry for the frame rate, but we have a lot of things running right now, and if you guys can start shutting off things, it'd make things a little bit smoother. But yeah, so this is the soil distribution center. So now talk about soil. I mean, we all know where it gets soil, right? You can dig it up. So you guys were digging up soil like crazy, and probably still are, right? Well, if you were running this, right? So where are you guys getting that soil from?
Okay, we have a rover with a drill and a paver, and we have been circumnavigating the planet to collect soil. And it is an issue. We certainly hope that SES will give us a thumper of some sort, or some sort of soil collection system where we can, through an automated process, number one, collect soil, but more importantly, that we don't actually remove terrain from the environment.
So why is that a problem? Because this whole game is about deforming, right? I mean, from the moment you get in, you start digging up resources. So why is that an issue?
And that is not an issue if you only dig a small amount. And I'm calling a small amount what you would dig by hand to gather resources to build up your bases. When you get to the point that we're at, where you're trying to wholesale do things like convert soil to scrap, where you're taking one canister for 8 pieces of scrap, do the math. We have over 10,000 pieces of scrap. That's a lot of soil. And what we have found is every time we make a run to fill up canisters, and we typically fill up 14 canisters, we take one of the silos, we put it on the back of the rover, and we have a path where we circumnavigate the entire planet. We head out to the east and we return from the west. And what we have found is when we come back with 14 canisters of soil, the save file size for the game has increased by 1 megabyte. So this save is currently over 50 megabytes. It was at 49, but I needed to make a soil run. And when I came back, we were over 50. So it is very expensive. And oh, by the way, the larger the file size, the longer it takes to load. When this file was running on the server, as a client, I would come in, it takes me 7 minutes for the game to load up. And my belief is that that is strictly because of how much terrain has been modified. And of course, it's being modified with us collecting soil. So we're hoping the development team will give us a way of getting that soil through some automated process that's not actually disturbing the terrain, so the system doesn't have to track the changes.
Right. And so, okay, so that was the key words there at the very end. So what you're saying is the reason why this is a problem is because you're making such a huge change to the environment that when you're loading up, the game has to then go through, read all of these changes, implement all of these changes, which is causing not only the file size to grow, but a slowdown to load in. And is it really a slowdown to run, though?
Good question. It is certainly, here's one of the big issues we had, and here's why I run all the way around the planet instead of going halfway and coming back. If I take the rover and start digging through the planet and turn around and try to drive back over the road that I just created, what I find is that the terrain or the road, and I'm sure many players have seen this, it does not render in. And if you drive over an area that has not rendered in, you typically fall into the core of the planet and you're stuck in the middle of soil because it renders in after you've already driven over it and now you're stuck. That has been so aggravating. What I found out is that, don't go back over the road you just drove. Initially, what we would do is we drive a long ways and then slowly creep back, waiting on each piece. And literally it would take 5 or 10 minutes, each piece of the road to render in. Once it has rendered in, you can drive back over it back and forth with no problem. So we would drill a new path, but then drive back over the old road because it was already rendered in. Well, so it certainly impacts, the game performance because you literally have to stop and wait. And you can see in real time things render in front of you.
Well, that's kind of interesting. And I will take this one little bit of this conversation out, and I will send it over to the SES devs and maybe post it online as well to get just people's feedback from this. But this would also be true for adding soil as well. So for those people that I've seen videos of that have actually changed the face of the moon by adding a bunch of soil in, it would probably have to write to the save file just to keep track of those changes. And probably the same problem would be true. But you're saying that if for people that run soil systems, whether it be to generate scrap or whether to generate basic resources off of the soil centrifuge, it would be better to have some sort of soil thumper extractor that produces soil. And this is, I guess, is your mock-up of it, right? This is
right.
So that would produce soil for you. What? Quickly? Slowly? What?
I would think slowly because we don't want to break the game dynamic, right? So I would say for me, if I was to put this thumper on compound, by the time it fills up 1 canister of compound, I would love to have 1 canister of soil.
Okay, same extraction rate.
Same extraction rate, but nothing actually changed beneath. Fill up the canister and just generate the soil from software or somewhere in the system such that the ground remains undisturbed and the system doesn't have to track it.
Right. You don't have to redraw those changes to the environment.
Right. And whether it's this or some other machine that does it, I just think it would add to the value, the gameplay value, right, of being able to have it be an automated process. So then I can have an auto arm, right, that then pulls that soil off and feeds it into my soil system instead of needing to drive around and collect all of these canisters and be, because that does become a bit grindy.
Right. This extractor really isn't available to you until I'd say mid-tier gameplay, at least until you have, several things up and running. Chem lab, atmospheric condenser, you've gathered enough resources, you have enough power to run these effectively. So are you still thinking that soil is also towards the end game, or are you thinking this is more soil extractor is somewhere mid-game and maybe a smaller version of this extractor, maybe some mid-game version of this extractor that just extracts soil?
Either one would be good if they kept it as it is, because as you said, we don't normally get the thumper until about mid-game. I think that would work out fine. I don't see a big need to get a lot of soil through this process early game because you're running around collecting resources, exploring, building ramps. You're going to get some soil that way anyway, and I don't see an issue with that. So if they would make it available about the same time during the life cycle of a game as they do for the existing auto resource extractor would be great.
Right. This is just trying to eliminate mass terrain changes because you're gathering soil. I mean, that's the sole purpose of it, right?
Absolutely.
So, yeah. So All right. Well, it's interesting. There's been a time where people have brought up, what about a soil extractor? And they kept saying we can't find a use case scenario for it. Maybe this is a good enough reason to start exploring this, because I have a brand new machine. And while I am hosting you three guys, which does cause, frame rates to go down and so on and so forth to begin with, it does cause a little bit of time for it to load up. I mean, I completely understand where this would have some value. So I will forward this part of the video over to them and see what they say. I don't know if they're going to say anything. They might not say anything at all. They might just go, maybe it's not worth doing. I would think that it would be easy to implement, but who knows? Well, is there anything else you guys want to show at the base or talk about at the base? We're kind of an hour and 20 minutes in. We've covered a lot of stuff. Is there anything else left to cover?
I think that's it for me.
I think same for me. I'm fine.
Dan?
Same for me.
All right. Now, we didn't have Josh. So this creation, once again, was created by Kilmowski, Ron, Josh, Zensight. It was part of their challenge. This file will be available to you on the shared drive. It's called what on the shared drive?
ATROX Armageddon, and it's in the Patreon folder.
Okay, ATROX Armageddon. So when you go to the shared folders, look for the Patreon folder, the Patreon server folder, and you'll find that ATROX Armageddon file in there. If you have any questions, I highly recommend that you reach out to Ron, Zen, Kilmowski, Josh. Maybe they're are willing to sit down and explain to you, but I think we covered the base pretty much from end to end. But if there's some other technical detail that we didn't cover, I'm sure you guys would be happy to field questions, right?
Absolutely. And if anyone would like, we'll be more than happy to put this up on the public server and have people come in and we can have a discussion and you can run around and look at things and ask questions. We're more than happy to do that.
Yeah, well, that's another thing, right? So we have a public dedicated server that anybody can get into, and we're running challenges and events on that as well. But this would be a good idea if you guys wanted to see this run, to have it. Just remember, it's going to take a while to load up, but once it does, then you can see how this whole thing works. If you can't get it running on your own local machine, or if you have a console and you can't get this file converted to your console version, you could definitely get on the server with crossplay, except for PS4 right now, and be able to take a peek at this. Well, I'm beyond impressed. Total number of hours you said was about what, 400, 200? What was it?
240, I think it was.
240 hours to create this 4-man team, and extremely impressive. Be sure you give those guys a huge shout out in the comments section. And also, if you guys, if anybody watching, if you have a base that you want to have featured in the Epic Bases, let me know. Reach out to me and share your save file with me, and let me take a look at it. And if we think it's something that we should probably talk about, we'll get you on video and talk about your base. But at any rate, I want to thank Ron, Zen, Kilmowski, Josh. You guys have a good one. Thank you for sharing this with me and the community, and we'll talk to you guys later. Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Bye. I'm getting out of here.
See you later, everybody.